Oh, bastard.
Okay, so yep, we are officially live now. Hopefully Sibcoe's back. Nope, that's okay. We can start without him. So thanks for.
I am. I'm just pulling your chain.
Wow.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to this first ever live Grindcast. I am Dr. J Dreadscythe, or Dread for short. I am joined by my co-host, co-owner, and all-around smartass, Beta.
Wow, you're too kind, Dread.
You know it. All right. So, and on top of that, we are joined by finally, with respect being a two-way street. Been on his podcast a lot and YouTube videos and such, and now I'm glad to finally have him be part of one of ours. So I would also like to welcome Sibcoe from RTG Gaming. How are you tonight?
Doing good. Hey guys, what's up? And don't think this somehow excuses you from doing the next state of Diablo 3.
Another 2.5 hour marathon video at like midnight on a Monday. Yes, of course.
There's
Let's
no
do
other
it.
way.
I still remember that. It was. Ugh. Okay, let's not go back to that. That was painful. It was awesome to do it It was a Friday night. It was at midnight. Went to like 2 o'clock. It was when the patch hit and all that fun stuff happened, and we got it out. And you put it up, and you had it really before anyone else had a freaking clue what was going on. So I guess it was all worth it.
It was
Yeah.
good times.
That was interesting. I knew that if I didn't get it done, that I would probably never get it done. So I wanted to get it done that night.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it was. Alrighty, so why are we doing a live grindcast? Well, we decided, we can't play beta at this particular point. Why can't we? Because our characters are slowly getting erased. It's like a fading town. Every once in a while, three more people just move out of the town until there's nobody left. But hey, it's like as beta, as you said, what we're getting letters early.
Yeah, we're getting. Oh, geez, yeah, it's like ladders. Yeah, they're here, but not the way we want them to be there, right?
Exactly. And unfortunately, you do not have a level 60 softcore character, so I will be the whipping boy to get you back up to 60 on another softcore character, right?
Yeah, so I play hardcore on my retail account, so when they do these ladder resets on the beta server, I have to re-level a guy from level 1 with no money, no anything, and so Dread has to like basically carry me because I'm too fat.
But you love your cake, don't you? All right. So I guess with that, Sibcoe, what are you excited with this wipe? Do you think you got as much as you could done before this?
I'm always excited for a wipe, but in this particular case, I'm particularly excited. I'm just hoping to see something new, something different, because I'm anxious as ever to see where the Reaper of Souls game is going and what we're going to finally get. And we can get into this later, but there's a lot of talk in the forums. There's a lot of things going on. There's, there's just a lot of chit chat about, is this everything we're going to get, and is there going to be anything more? Is there a potential surprise down the pipe? And Nevelistus is talking about certain stuff, and yeah, it'll be fun to talk about and see where it's going.
All right. So I guess we'll just leapfrog from there with certain stuff and is this all and all that kind of stuff. Now, everyone who is either in the beta or has any clue what RoS is and the beta knows that we can pretty much in the beta do pretty much everything except, go after Methel, which is the final boss of the expansion. That's not a spoiler. If you didn't know that, you're underneath the rock. I'm sorry, I have to apologize for that. But we can pretty much do everything. That means we have access to the Mystic. All the Artisans go up to level 12. We can get to level 70 on all our characters, Hordecore or Softcore. clans and communities are in there, and we're going with what we have of them now. Crafting is up there, but it seems woefully unfinished. A couple of icons are missing, a couple of mats aren't there, but you can't pick them up yet. So we can just do a whole hell of a lot more in this beta. So I guess coming from both of you, because I know Beta, we originally were sharing an account back in the day, yours, when we first got for the beta. So I know you were in there. I'll start off with Sibcoe. Are you much happier with the way they're doing the beta this time around versus the way they did it before, where you only got to level 13, it was very limited ability usage and such, etc., etc.?
Yeah, for sure, I really am, because in the past, Blizzard had been very closed door, and that's a very old school mentality. It's a very old school approach. It's a borderline paranoid approach in this day and age, and it doesn't usually work out that well. And the reason being is gaming's become so mainstream, especially for a company like Blizzard that really define the mainstream. And so having sort of a little more transparency, I think, is definitely going to do them really good service in the long run. It's going to let players have less excuse, almost, if you like, to say that they didn't know something was going to be this or that or another way. It also allows them to get a lot more player feedback from a much wider global audience than they've ever been able to in the past. And I think it's proven immensely successful with Hearthstone, and I think it's a really good idea with Diablo 3, and I expect to see the same thing from Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah, I have to agree with most of what you said. When you have so much more testing being done, you can actually flush out a lot of the bugs, so that way when the game launches, even if you have in-house testing, you're not going to catch as much as thousands of extra people helping you are going to catch, right? There's going to be extra bugs that they're going to flush out, so when the game is finally ready for release, it's not going to feel like a beta, kind of like what happened with the original Diablo 3 retail right now.
Yeah, and that's how I feel. I mean, I agree with what you both said. I mean, just the fact that we could do so much more, it's not boring. It's not boring to the point of why did they even release it. It's a much better setup for them getting feedback and just understanding what they need to fix. I think one of the strangest and yet funniest bugs we saw was when, I think it was yesterday. Was it really just yesterday or the day before that? We just went in brawling for like half an hour. It wound up being by the time we were done, all out, we went back to New Tristram, and all of a sudden we realized, why is the waypoint circle in the middle of town not there?
Yeah.
Why is the Rift Nephilim building object there, which was originally used in the D3 beta for switching out your abilities, because they were so anal about that, but they repurposed it for Rifts. I'm like, where is it? Like, is this like a bug? And all of a sudden, I opened up my map, went to Act 3, and then I went back to New Tristram, and everything went back there. And I think you did Beta went back to the trial grounds, came back out, and it repeated itself. Mm-hmm. So it's like stupid things like that go a long way in really polishing a game, especially for a Blizzard, quote-unquote, it's done when it's done game. And stuff like that probably would have gotten lost because who would have written up the training book for their internal testers? Okay, go to the brawler, go in there, fight for 5 minutes, come out, see if everything is normal. It's not in there. So that's why us schmucks, or whatever you want to call us, who just want to play around, do something a little different, we found a bug, and that's how you do it when you get your thousands of players and everything done like that. So that's why I love the fact that the beta is so open this time around. So is there anything else you guys want to ask before we move on?
I want to chime in. So it's kind of funny you mentioned that we actually do submit bugs to Blizzard. There was a post on the Diablo 3 forums, and it was like, beta testers are doing it wrong. Everyone's running the same build. Nobody's trying out all the skills. And it's like, if I was in the beta, I would have one of every class. I would test out all the skills. And it's like, come on, you wouldn't realistically do that. But we are submitting feedback. It's not like we're just playing and having fun with our friends and not doing our duties as well. We are submitting our feedback, and we are thoroughly testing the game. Just because what you see on the stream is what we're doing doesn't mean that we're not playing the game off the stream and testing out a whole bunch of different builds, because that's how you find out what these good builds are anyway, by testing all of the different abilities, right? You want their proc coefficients, you want their damage, their everything. You want to know everything about every skill. So the only way to do that and to find out these awesome builds that you see people streaming is to test them. So we are doing our job as well.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Sibcoe?
No, not a minute. I think that's definitely good for right now.
All right. So I don't want to make this a long, drawn-out podcast, but I guess we could kind of go into more general categories. When it comes to the PvE aspect of the game, the regular campaign mode as it is now versus regular Diablo 3 Live, along with adventure mode, how do you like those two modes as they are right now? How do you like campaign mode? How do you like adventure mode? So we'll start with you now.
Alright, cool. So, yeah, campaign mode, yeah, just take it out of the game, don't care. Adventure mode, love it. Really like adventure mode. Adventure mode's what's been missing for a long time. It's been really frustrating in live game if you're sitting there in Act 3 and you're stuck in Act 3 and you can't move and you've got your Nephilim Valor stacks and you just want to, like, scream. Really annoying. And I love that the monsters scale. Adventure mode is just all about exploration, and I'm a big exploration fan. I love it. Now, I think there's some things should be in the game to further that. There should be a reason for me to just randomly go out into the world and not be doing bounties or rifts. But that's a whole nother topic. I think just generally adventure mode is really, really awesome. It's a fantastic addition to the game. It's desperately been needed, and it's probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest positive additions to the entire game in Reaper of Souls. It's just really, really well done. I like it a lot. So for me, it's probably where I'm going to spend 99.9% of all my playtime.
And Beta, how do you liking both modes right now?
It's interesting. So the campaign mode, I'm kind of old school, so I do like playing the campaign mode from time to time. After doing adventure mode back to back to back, running rifts, running bounties, running rifts, running bounties, you kind of want something new, so you go back and you do a campaign mode. But the campaign mode for Act 5, a lot of it's unfinished at its current state of the game, and so it does take a little bit of the enjoyment out of it, but it's still fun to run, and so I do like doing the campaign mode. But yeah, I have to agree with Sibcoe. The adventure mode is definitely a breath of fresh life for the Diablo 3 franchise, and I think as more people start getting to test it, they'll see that, yeah, this is actually really fun. But at the same time, you still need something a little bit more, like something's just missing. It's like having ice cream and you've got your cake and you've got your frosting, but you don't have like the cherry on top, So I think what's missing for me is I miss like some type of competitive aspect to the game. I mentioned this in the previous cast with Lintonio. I'm a very competitive player. I like competing against my friends, competing against the world. So not having that any type of competitive aspect to the game, it feels like something's missing for me, and I think that's what it is. So once we start seeing some implementation of some other type of competitive endgame for Diablo 3, I think the game's going to be a blast.
Yeah, I definitely feel so too. The thing I like about the campaign mode the most, and I did an article on it for originally BlizzCon, but it still holds true playing through it now much more fully, probably like 95% of what is available to us versus what we're going to get when RoS goes live, is just the whole atmosphere. The atmosphere is exactly how it is. They described it as somewhat old, somewhat cold, definitely dark, definitely nailing it with the gothic theme, and just this overwhelming feeling of chaos is happening around you, and it's not getting better as you go through the act. And I really feel they nailed it. I mean, even the music, it's like as you go. I remember as you get towards the later elements, later places that you go to in the act, like Pandemonium, the music shifts from like the beginning to the end, and it puts you on edge. Like there's like a violins, there's strings, and they just hit a nerve that just keeps you on edge the closer and closer you get to Methel himself. So I really feel they did nail down that aspect as far as the environment. And when it gets just to adventure mode, I think that's where everyone's going to go. I think everyone's going to do campaign to get to 70 or get as far as they can in their leveling process just to complete the star mode, just to know what happens. See the cinematic at the end, and then have their cliffhanger for the next expansion, and then it's gonna be boom, right do your bounties, do your rifts, and really start gearing your character, because that's where you also have the gambling merchant for your blood shards. That's where you're probably gonna get a lot of your consistent drops, and it's just an overall better experience. Now, both of you mentioned that there's something missing, competitive PvE aspect to it, and yeah, I agree too. Playing through, there needs to be something, and if I had the ability to show a graph or to show some kind of illustration to make this a little bit more clear, I would, but unfortunately I don't. So I'll have to do the best I can with words. In any kind of a game, whether it's an MMO, an MMORPG, action RPG, if the end goal is to get the best gear, basically the item hunt, eventually you're going to get to a point where you are versus the min-max, the best min-max you can be, the distance between that gets so small, it becomes unnoticeable. And that's where a lot of the top-end gear players are right now. And we'll quickly get to that with RoS. Give it a week or two. But it's also a matter of Paragon is now is the true long-term goal of a character, so it doesn't really count anymore. Adventure mode is really a gearing set. So having a challenge mode, lack of a better term, that's been used by a couple of people around the community for their great suggestions. They really need to do that. So, if you guys don't have anything else to add, I guess we could kind of jump into what would our ideas for said challenge mode be, whether it be ladders or PvP. What would be the biggest thing you guys want to see besides just giving it a name of challenge mode? Justin, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm a very competitive player, so I really got into the World of Warcraft arena. I love doing my World of Warcraft arenas. It's probably one of the most enjoyable experiences of World of Warcraft, minus obviously leading a huge raiding guild, doing endgame raids. But no matter, even if you're doing like raids, there's still like a bracket ladder. You had people that you're trying to get ahead of. You're always try to down those first bosses. So even in raiding, it was still competitive, even though it's a different kind of PvP. So, but what I would like to see for an endgame, I know this is kind of been said and everybody's thinking it, but since you asked my opinion, I would like to see a Diablo 3 arena. Now, I did get to play the Diablo 3 arena when they announced it at BlizzCon. I think it was 2011. They announced Diablo 3 arenas, and I did get to play that, and it was a blast. It was very fun. I really enjoyed it. So I was very disheartened when I heard that they were taking it out of the game and they were not going to go back to it.
Yeah, I mean, I was too. I was actually a little bit jealous when you told me, like, you actually got to play it. Like, what? But yeah, so it was all good, and I wish I had a chance to play because it looked like a finished system. I mean, balance is balance, but it's a PvE game. not first, but only. So just keep it the way it is. Sibcoe, your thoughts on the matter?
Well, indeed. I do think, by the way, that everybody should play the campaign at least once. Of course, we probably will have to, but they have done, I should point out, some fairly amazing stuff in terms of storyline. Some of the cinematics and some of the actual storyline in Reaper of Souls. There's some just mind-blowing events that I've never seen before in any action RPG. Really, really good. That being said, I'll do it as quickly as possible once. So in terms of Endgame, yeah, I hate Endgame. I'm just going to come out and say it. So I really dislike the concept of Endgame. But I get that it's where we are as gamers, and it's where the community is, and it's where the industry is. So we'll go with it. And I'm against it because I'm against games that trivialize everything that comes before it. And that's one of my only complaints, I suppose, about Blizzard in general, is that their games do promote the irrelevancy of your entire gaming experience prior to the quote-unquote end game. By comparison, a game like Path of Exile allows you to find things in the game that are relevant all the way through your entire play experience. So I just wish they would change that one thing. That being said, in terms of endgame and the end game that we're looking forward to, there are some things missing. My biggest concern to date is seeing posts by CMs talking about the beta really being a process of refinement and minimizing errors, not really adding anything. And if the game we have today represents the entirety of the Reaper of Souls beta, I do think there's going to be an issue. And that's because running rifts endlessly becomes tiresome, frankly. And while it's a fantastic experience and it's really fun, and I've spent a stupid amount of hours doing it since I got into the beta, and I've enjoyed every single one of them without fail. That's great for now, but 12 months later, can you still do it? And that's the question. And without some additional endgame, I'm not sure the answer is yes. So for me, endgame in Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls would be really about PvE challenge modes. They have to have this in the game at some point for it to become a successful title more than it has already. I mean, it's already successful by any stretch of the imagination. But for it to really be the game that it can be, it needs to have PvE challenge modes. I know a lot of people love PvP. Oh, sorry. I'm just not a big fan of PvP. I don't think it has a place in a Diablo game. And the reason I say that is because I think the resources are best spent focusing on what the game is meant to provide, which is an outstanding PvE experience. And the way that you'd be competitive in a PvE experience is to have competitive PvE. So for me, that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm not against PvP. I've done a ton of it in my life. I just think there's better formats for it. So for me, it's all about getting those challenges in there and just making sure that they have a constant influx of legendary items that provide ways for new and diverse builds to be created. The biggest mistake that they can make and the most dangerous path that they can follow in terms of risking the game's success is in looking at the game as requiring 100% balance and starting to remove a lot of the great work that they've done out of fear of balance. I believe it's partly what happened in the original Diablo 3 vanilla, and I'm seeing hints of it in this one, and that is probably my really, truly biggest concern for the game going forward. It needs to have not stuff taken out, but stuff being added on a consistent basis. And for that to happen, there needs to be a plan of action and kind of a go-forward plan for how they're going to do that. One of the complaints about D3 Vanilla, for example, was that you got all the legendaries. There was nowhere being added until Reaper of Souls. Reaper of Souls adding a bunch. I think they need to continue to add. So while I don't expect continuous content, the likes of which an MMO subscription-based game would see, I think they have to do something to keep it fresh. So that's just my thoughts. I don't think there's enough in the game today to give it the longevity that it needs and that we all want. I think it needs a little bit more.
Yeah, I think I was talking to you, Sibcoe, when I mentioned, like, Diablo 3 is an action RPG. It should, these broken builds, you should be able to do them, right? Like, why shouldn't you be able to do them? You're killing monsters. You're not, like, killing players. There's no competitive mode in the game at the moment. If you're doing an action RPG and you've got a really powerful build, make the other builds really powerful as well.
Yeah, and just to give a quick, because both of you hit on a lot of things that I feel. In the beginning of RoS, it's so weird to say that. It's like we've only been doing this for what, like a week and a half, 2 weeks. I don't know at this point. It's a lot shorter than we all feel at this point. Um, Everything was new and exciting, and then we got to doing the campaign. We got our characters to level 70, and then we got our legendaries, we got our builds, and we were zoom into Torment anywhere between 1 to 4, doing rifts, doing bounties. Now, the progress, we all know the drop rates of legendaries have been tuned upwards for us, just because of beta purposes, just to give us a sense of we're seeing a lot more than we would normally be seeing, and that can always be tuned down, etc. Normal standard operating procedure. But it's also the point of once you there's and I think this is what Sibcoe, this kind of touches on what you said about, endgame invalidating everything before it, almost, in the way Blizzard and most game companies do it. It's become standard procedure. Is you make a character, you get it to its max level, and then for an MMO, you go do your 5-man instances, then you get your 10-man, and then you go into your 25, and then you go into, which would for WoW would be you're looking for a raid, and then your group finder, then finally like your standard guild put together, then the heroic version. There's a linear progression between all that, and to bring it to Diablo, it's okay, you make a character, get in live, you get it to 60, and then you gear it, and then you start doing your monster power levels, and then you get your Paragon up at the same time, so you get your Magic Fund, and the more Magic Fund you get, the better loot you should get, and then you go from there. Now, AH and everything aside with live, in RoS, it's not really changing. You take out the auction house, but with the smart drops, you are getting more drops. With the Mystic and Enchanting, you can take a 80% piece of gear and make it a lot closer to what you need. And with the Gambling Merchant, you can basically get a character power level from 1 to 70, and then just do a whole bunch of bounties, and then use the blood shards to get you your basic set of rare gear at that particular point. So if you're going with that thought process, they need to have something at the end that's, in my view, my personal, that doesn't rely on the gear, but relies on the player's skill and makes them work for it. That's why I liked so many of the suggestions that were presented earlier this week, like the Pandemonium Tower, the basically a endless dungeon, but it's actually tower, so it goes upwards, along with comparing how fast or how much you've cleared of it against your clan, against everybody, against your friends, just that aspect. So that's what I particularly like, and I hope they bring in. And I on the same sentiment, I really hope they don't say this is it, because there's still the aforementioned Devil's Hand that was data mined that we still don't have a clear picture of what that is. And there's still Nephilim trials, which we know are cut from release, but may make their way in at a point afterwards. So, and there's still other stuff they could bring up as well. So that's my viewpoint on it. Is there anything else you guys want to say on it, or are we pretty good?
Yeah, I'll say something. So, it's interesting because they're really starting. Like, this is the first public testing that they've done, and I feel like, and I know others feel like this way too, that it is too late to put in an endgame. Unless they want to push it back many more months, and I think at this point, with Activision kind of cracking the whip behind them, I doubt that they're going to add much more to the endgame. So you mentioned that the idea of the tower, you're going up and up and up, but they're not going to have time to make a whole new system to do that by release. There's no way that's going to be able to happen.
No, at this point, any major additions would have to be post-release content. Like I said before, Nephilim Trials already know we're cut for release. If they're going to be added back in, it's going to have to be several months after the game comes out. So
on that, yeah. So like, I saw today that the CMs were mentioning that Nephilim Trials. Oh my god, I'm literally like throwing stuff at the desk right now. Keep dropping everything.
bad desk, naughty desk.
I tell you. All right, so I'm gonna put stuff down. They've been taken out of the game, but are being replaced, I believe, for release with cursed chests. Is what they're calling it. I don't know what that means. Novelistas posted about today. I'm not sure exactly the details, but it is coming to the beta and the PTR in the very near future, is what I understand. So that was an update just from a very short time ago, tonight. But I have seen from Novelistas and others that there's just no way that they're going to get to a legitimate end game, the type of which is being, described in these posts that are so well put together by some of the community. And, that's unfortunate. Will it ever see the light of day? Yeah, maybe it will, Maybe we'll get it in an additional expansion, but that's, a significant amount of time away. Maybe the next expansion will focus on end game now that they've got the base game, more or less in place. And that would be great, and I'm okay with that. I don't mind if it takes another expansion for it to get its act together in terms of endgame, but it definitely needs it. And it'd be a real shame to see such a great game, move along the evolution of its life without really getting a chance to shine. Right now they have a lot of systems that are core systems that aren't being fleshed out and added to. They're skeletons without a body, as I call it, and they need that body in order to be really, complete. So I hope to see those things come into the game later. I do know that Novelistas and Lyleria and Vayflare, others who have talked about the game, have mentioned that at this point they're not going to be able to get to too much of that, and what we see is more or less what we get. That is concerning. I don't even see ladders talked about too much yet. I'm really anxious to see this next patch to see if there's anything in it at all that would indicate we're going to see some kind of ladder system, because without ladders, even without that, I think the game is really missing out on a great opportunity.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. You mentioned that they kind of had to go back and redo a lot of the work, and I think that's absolutely true. I think a lot of their time was spent going back, reworking all of the previous items that were in existence, breaking them down into primary stats, secondary stats, adding unique affixes to all of the legendaries. That's very time consuming, and I think that's where a lot of their effort went to for this expansion. They're going back, reworking all these old systems that were in the game and making them better. But in the meantime, that's all well and good. But they just don't have time to do everything that they want to do. And I think if you give them some time, I think just like you said that we'll probably end up seeing a couple of these endgame ideas come into play. But I wouldn't expect them for release. At least nothing nothing that's going to require new artwork, new content, but something simple as like a ladder system. I think we could definitely see something like that in the next very soon. So maybe not with release, but soon after release.
I would say that if the game goes live without ladders, all hell will break loose. Literally this time, not just in Sanctuary.
Yeah. A lot of the things are like a ladder system if it's not in there 3 to 6 months out, but also just like simple things. Like a lot of these ideas could be implemented, say 6 to 12 months out. Mid span of the current expansion life cycle. So you figure expansion can last anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5 years before another one comes out at the longest. At the rate they're going with other games such as StarCraft and World of Warcraft. But they're going to need something because, like I said before, everyone's going to get there level 60. It's not level 1, it's level 60. And they're going to get it up to level 70 very quickly. Probably within, if they're like us, probably within a day or two. Because it's not going to take that long. And then you're going to start getting your gear again. But if gear is the only thing at the end of the road, it's not that much of a carrot. Because the thing I've come to learn, just basically really trying to break down like what is the core of this game. Is it really gear? And like the gear's nice, but you show off the gear. You put the gear on the forum to show off your builds. You tell them what you can do with that piece of gear, or at least in Reaper Souls, okay, I got this Wand of Woe, so now I can have a no cooldown explosive blast, and it rolled perfectly for me. So not only is it great, it rolled perfect stats, and now I can re-roll to make it even better. But even with that set aside, I think there's too much emphasis put on the gear, dare I say. It's an item hunt game, how dare I say that? But gear should be not a carrot on a stick to get you to play the game more. A gear should be the symbol of an achievement, of which the process to get that gear, all the hours of grinding, all the hours of failed tries, but also the hours of spending time with your friends, going through levels, trying different builds, experimenting with different builds, if possible, which is looking a whole lot better in Reaper Souls than it is in Live as it stands. I think that's the way it should be viewed as. Like, gear shouldn't be carrot and stick to get you to go more, because anyone can say, my gear is good enough, I don't have to play another 100 hours to try to get a better piece that's marginally better than what I have right now. It should be about the process. So that's why competitive endgame is such a big deal to most people when you phrase that aspect, because it's the process of grinding that tower, getting up to the 100, all the stories, all the things you tell your friends, all the mumble talks or event talks, whatever communications you use, all the time you spend on perfecting a build to do the tower, and again, using example, to get as high as you can, all the achievements you unlock as you get up there to finally get up there. And even if there's no gear, the process became what people loved and admired. All the little aesthetics are just a little add-on. Or in this case, oh, you finally got that piece of gear. Yes, it's helping you out a lot over what you currently have, but people tend to remember the process, the grinding, the stories, the people who they're chatting with, and that carries a game a whole lot more than just the gear. That's why World of Warcraft is so much more successful, because they hit a magic point where they made the game about the community, not about the game itself. So that's how I feel about the whole thing when it comes to, just adding on to, what they should be focusing on and what they're saying. And yeah, it does kind of suck that they're not going to get to it now, but hey, at least they're being honest with us, They can say, oh yeah, we'll put runestones in as a drop. You remember those days? And runestones never made it into the game, and then it became this whole wowific rune system. Yeah, so I'll appreciate the more so honesty now than later. But let's not dwindle too much more on this topic, and let's move over to, well, no. What topic? Is there a topic in mind you want to go over? Do we dare go over the whole BOA argument? Do we feel like we can get even more depressed by talking about this? Yeah. Or should we save that for a little bit later?
On what you said about the itemization, I actually don't agree with that. I think that items should be they should be spending a lot of time on itemization, because that's the entire point of Diablo, right? Is to get your items, to make sure they're good. So your items should definitely feel good when you get them. And I understand that it's it's partially about the experience of getting those items as well, but the way that Diablo works, where all items are kind of randomly given to you, there's not a whole lot of accomplishment on getting that item. Like in World of Warcraft, you've got raids, and you can kind of aim. You down a boss and you get this really awesome legendary, and you show it off, and it shows that it's a symbol that you down that boss. But in Diablo 2 or Diablo 3, that's not the case. All your items are kind of generated randomly on the spot, so you don't really get that sense of achievement. So I think focusing on that isn't a very good idea, but actually focusing on the legendaries themselves and making sure that those legendaries feel really badass I think, and that's what they're working on. I think that's a good route to go, and especially when you want to start making all these really wacky builds, which I'm hoping for. A lot of the items in the beta right now, they don't feel very build driven, and I hope they fix that pretty soon.
All right. So that's a good add-on. What other topics can we move on to?
Let's talk about the BOA.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
It's gonna happen eventually, so might as well just get it over with. So, your thoughts on BOA, Dread?
Okay. I'll make it a lot shorter and sweeter than what I said before. In my personal view, okay, you start off with bind on trade. Okay. Now, a prefix to this whole thing is if you want to make something that works successfully and doesn't, basically your outline for trying to make a perfect system that does not exist. You could try. It does not exist. You always have a compromise somewhere. Is free and open between players, makes it really hard, or basically makes it possible to trade items with bots, and doesn't add 15 new UI elements for it to actually be feasible on infrastructure possible. Okay, so let's start with this. Bind on equip. Now, a lot of people say bind on equip is fantastic, but think about it this way. Bind on equip means it binds when it equips to you. When you get into your min-maxing, or for the more hardcore players, having a toughness value, a damage value, and a healing value is not enough. You're going to have to equip it. You're going to have to see how your values go up. And you're going to have to do many hours of testing to see if it even is good, if it's even working, if the legendary affix even matters in the end. And if it doesn't, now you have a piece of gear that's out of the economy, which is a whole nother topic by itself. But you could have given it to a friend. So now you put in a bind. Do I dare even test this, or do I just give it to my friend? And bind on equip allows any botter to go in, bot, and trade it. So in the end, the botters win. And then you go to bind on trading. Okay, bind on trading is essentially the same thing as bind on equip, with a little less guilt and a little more certainty in. As soon as I trade this, it's gone. But BOE and BOT are essentially the same exact thing. It's just, as soon as you trade, it's gone, versus that person could never equip it and give it back to you a year from now, and you wouldn't have to worry about it. And both of these require, in the most basic forms, some technical aspects to them, which they do have granted in now with BOE A on a 2-hour timer. BOA by itself, with the 2-hour timer, I really feel it's probably the best case situation we have right now. I'm not saying it's the best case thing that should make it into release, but there have been many times where I've played with Beta, I've played with Sibcoe, I've played with Nevik and Antonio from Shadow Soulstone, and Jade from the forums, and we've done stuff that we played that works just as well as our characters, and we throw it on the ground, we pick it up, and there's no quibbling over like, hey, can I get gold flat? Like, no, I can't use it, or I have it already. Here, take it. Or it sucks compared to what I have, but if it's upgraded to you, here, take it. It's a mindset change from, oh no, I can make money off of this on the auction house too. There's no auction house. I can't use this. Therefore, it's dead to me as far as the item. Here, take it. The only case why you wouldn't do that is if you need the mystic enchanting pieces. So yeah. And any form of clan or friends linking to it can be manipulated. I mean, let's not get around it. It's going to be manipulated, and it's going to be done. So the only thing I can really think of is to keep the BOA 2-hour thing in right now, and also implement a system from console, which is the whole gift legendary, which is anytime a legendary drops on console, or at least can be patched in, it's another like gift legendary will drop, and you basically mail that off using the PSN network to your friend, and it has a chance of rolling a random legendary or rare. I want to go a step further. If a legendary drops, you basically put it into a shared stash system, or you just trade it to a friend after the 2 hour mark. It's the same item, so you know you're still getting the same legendary property, but it's totally going to re-roll itself. So there's no guarantee in how good it is. And the botters aren't going to win as much on that aspect because an item can roll just VIT, just int, VIT and it, or it can roll no primary stat. So it's a complete random as far as what the other player is getting. But at least they have an opportunity of getting something rather than just saying, no, you're not going to be able to trade an item at all. So that's my viewpoint on the whole BOA fiasco as it stands right now until we see something better.
Sibcoe?
Oh man.
I know. I'm hurting you. I'm sorry.
Holy crap. So, yeah, I mean, if you guys have seen my video on the subject, you know where I stand. But for those two of you in the corner that haven't, I'll kind of reiterate a little bit. Basically, for me, I think you have to be willing to make a compromise with the botting and everything in order to get the kind of game that we want as players. You know, it's the old saying of, you know, cut your nose off to spite your face. You can, if you want, completely lock botting and RMT out of the game 100%, just like we essentially have in the Reaper Souls beta today. But ultimately what you're doing is you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. You're washing the baby out with the bathwater, whatever you want to call it. You're essentially making the game less enjoyable in order to completely try and secure it from any kind of rogue activity. I don't think that's necessarily a good approach. So that being said, I agree with Dread. I don't think there's a perfect system. I think you have to decide how much RMT and how difficult can you make it for them to want to do it. And the way that I've seen games do this successfully is to create a situation that requires thought. Farming companies that farm out gold and sell it for real life currency do so because they basically want to find an easy path. They usually don't know anything about the game. They're running a business, a hardcore sweat, blood, and tears business of people sleeping on floors and cranking out on computers 16, 18 hours a day. They're not interested in the mechanics of Diablo 3. They're interested in, does it have a currency we can sell for dollars? And if the answer is easily farmable, then they play it. A lot of the ways in which you can remove that equation from their mind is to force them to think about it. So in the case of, say, a game like Path of Exile, where there's very little botting, even though it's free to play, the reason for that is because there's no one de facto currency. The currency is based on market dynamics, and the market dynamics are dictated by the players. And the devs have some control over that by introducing new items and new values for currency items as they see fit in order to stabilize and destabilize the economy for benefit, essentially. So in Diablo 3, for example, we could have a situation where we have something like bind on trade, or legendaries are bind on trade, and gems are bind on trade, and gold cannot be traded, and crafting mats cannot be traded at all. So you remove gold as a currency that's easily farmable with a macro bot or a bot program, and you create an economy based on the relative value of gems. So essentially you trade a legendary. I've got my Mempo of Twilight with crit chance, and I want to trade it. How many gems is it worth? What kind of gems? And Blizzard can kind of also insert things to a little bit, affect control on that as well. For me, it's a good compromise. It's going to remove a lot of the less sophisticated botting, because even though they can farm gold, buy gems, and all the rest of it in the game itself, it's a step too far, in my opinion. It takes too much work. It detracts from them going to another game and simply farming more currency and just selling it. And Diablo 3, while really, really popular, isn't the top 1 or 2 games like World of Warcraft is in the world that they're going to be willing to go out of their way to really learn the system. So I think from that point of view, it's a good compromise. For me, having a bind on trade setup is pretty good. It also creates that kind of decision point about what do you do? Do you want to trade an item to get something you really need, or do you want to use it yourself? Even if you were to equip an item in that environment, I would be quite happy for that to be bound on account as well at that point, or bind on equipped at that point. I think there's just got to be a compromise. What I really do know, is that if we're not going to have an end game of any real consequence, and we're not going to have PvP, I think we do need the trading meta. Because if we don't have the trading meta, we're taking yet another depth element from the game that has historically been defining the game. That, you know, historically trading has defined Diablo as a game in many respects. I think we're taking that away and creating a more shallow game without any real reason to. So I think in the original vanilla, the auction house, the real money auction house, a bridge too far. I think in this version, bind on account is too far the other direction. We got to come back towards the middle a little bit, swing the pendulum back, and focus on something that isn't a total extreme.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, gosh, it's hard to even top back after that. But I'm not a huge fan of BOA.
He does that a lot.
He's definitely got his argument down to the T. So, I'm not a huge fan of BOA. You know, I'm kind of with the mob there on that aspect. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right there, Sibcoe. It's too far in that direction of security compromise. And another thing you have to realize is that you know, popularity of the game has a big thing to do with it too, right? Somebody who can make more gold and have a higher chance to sell their gold in a different game is going to go play that game versus, you know, playing Diablo 3. So, you know, you have less botters and stuff in your Diablo 3, you know, if it's less accessible and less profitable than these other MMOs that are going to have it as well. But as far as like solutions go, you know, there's like you guys were saying, there's no soundproof solution to BOA. You got to make a compromise, and hopefully that compromise isn't going to cost the players, you know, their enjoyment, especially since you know, there's so few players left that are going to play your game anyway.
Yeah, I think we've said enough, and I don't think we want to beat a dead horse.
Yeah.
But hey, at least we were civil about it. Oh my god, the ranting, the forums, oh, shudders.
Those are a nightmare right now.
Like Twilight Zone. All right, so let's move on to a more positive, hopefully positive aspect, because we can't even bash it because most of the stuff, at least for one of the artisans, isn't even really there. So we can't even like really crucify it all that much. Let's move on to a happier topic, more positive, uplifting topic, I hope, to crafting. Primarily the Mystic, because values and everything. So for those who don't know, the Mystic, if you really don't know, there's something wrong. The Mystic was reintroduced. Yes, reintroduced. It was in the original Diablo 3 beta. It was the whole plan along to have her lovely, fine self, eloquently put, to always be in the game. In fact, most of the spots where she is in the game were always intent for her to be, but they figured nothing was really... it was too close, and she didn't fit. A lot of things that she was doing were already in the game. They couldn't figure out a way to define her, so they just cut her from release, and now she's back. And oh my, is she back in the best way she could ever be possible. Again, just for a quick rehash, she can do enchanting, which you can put any item into her, basically the slot when you talk to her, and you'll get a list of all the properties, primary and secondary. You'll be able to see what each property will re-roll into before you select it and hit re-roll. You can only do a primary or a secondary, and a primary can only re-roll into primary stats, and a secondary can only re-roll into secondary stats. So, with that all aside, you can go as many times as you want. The gold increase will increasingly go up, and yes, JH and I have personally hit millions and tens of millions on rerolls, but that's because we were crazy and we were going with 30, 40, 50 rerolls for that perfect item. So, oh, you called him Rice. Yes, I'm marking that on the podcast. So yeah, that's one half of the Mystic. The other half is the transmogrification, and that is a great thing too. It's so nice to run around with a character that's not in clown gear, that actually looks like a costume or a character that you built and actually represents what you like, and all the armor and all the textures, which are so great now that I'm playing with high texture quality, not the low texture quality. Sorry, I had a little stumble there. And it's all great. So that's the primary thing about the Mystic. So I love it. I love what she does. She does it good. I'll end my little part there. So we're going to go to Beta first on his thoughts about crafting so far.
That was me, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. Yeah, the Enchantress is awesome. She's actually probably one of my most favorite features of RoS. It was a very pleasant surprise. I didn't know very much going into the RoS beta. I heard there's rumors that she was coming back, and I was like a little skeptical. I'm like, okay, well, they took her out for a good reason, obviously. So I was curious why they brought her back, but having her in the game now, it's like, yeah, this should have been in the game since the release. It feels really awesome being able to take a stat that, I don't like that life on hit. Let's re-roll that into like a ton of dexterity. So, yeah, it was actually a very pleasant surprise. And transmog system, that was in WoW, and to an extent, the enchant was as well. The enchant feature with the reforging, both really good features in WoW, and they both are very good features in Diablo 3 as well. Very pleasant surprise. I do love using the Enchantress. I use her very often. And yeah, definitely a very positive feature for Diablo 3.
Yeah. I think Sibcoe had to step away for a second or two. Oh, and he's back miraculously, just on time. So, just to give you a quick recap, I put my thoughts out on the Mystic, and so did Beta over there. How she's wonderful. She's a good old granny now, pretty much. So, what do you feel about the Mystic, and any other thoughts about crafting itself too?
Yeah, so the Mystic definitely could have done with being a little bit hotter. Let's just start with that. Auntie Annie's cookies definitely got in the way of that, I think. But
the Enchantress in about 50 years?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Maybe 500 years, I hope, But I would rather just swapped in the model for the Enchantress. Not that I'm, against curvy women, but, the Mystic.
I see where this podcast is going.
Here's a shovel, start digging.
Yeah, and I've wanted to get that off my chest for a long time. So thank you for that. No, I think that for me, the Mystic is pretty much one of the absolutely critical. Like, let me put it this way: if the Mystic was not in Reaper of Souls, it would not be Reaper of Souls. She is literally that fundamental to the game.
Agreed.
Everything she does is just absolutely required. I mean, it takes the whole concept of finding gear and brings it to a whole new level. It's just two simple things: enchant one stat to make it different, and maybe even not the one you want, maybe worse than what you had, and basically change how your stuff looks. And yet it completely revolutionizes the game because it allows you to take your items to a whole new level. You can be playing your wizard, and with the smart loot system, find a piece, a pair of shoulders, find a shoulders slot item that has, int, vit, damage, something like that, whatever you want to call it, crit hit, and a couple of secondary stats, and you can re-roll it into a strength, vit, crit hit, and secondary stats, and give it to your Crusader. I mean, it's fundamental to working in synergy with Smart Drop. It's also fundamental to taking currency out of the game, and it does a really good job of that. Maybe a little bit too good, because we're all going to go broke in trying to utilize her. But ultimately, she's just really, really fundamental to the game. She takes it to a whole new level and allows you to play the game in a completely different way. When you start looking at loot, you can no longer just look at the stats and garbage it based on that. You've got to look at the stats and say, hey, could I re-roll that? And if I could re-roll it, what would I re-roll it to, and would it be right? And you'll quickly find that some items are perfect to re-roll, some items are impossible to re-roll, and some items are a crapshoot. And it really just, fundamentally changes the way that you play the game, especially given that you can re-roll legendaries, which is really, really cool. It also gives you more things to grind for, because now when you get a legendary that's not good for you, you can actually go ahead and salvage it. And that creates a decision point. If, for example, we assume that there might be trading, not to go back to that, but if there were to be trading, it creates another decision point where you say, but I don't need this item. Do I salvage it because I need the Forgotten Soul to reroll my Uber Helm? Or do I go ahead and trade it and get that item that I need for my glove slot? Now I've created another decision point. Decision points are always good. So I think that she's just more fundamental than any of the other artisans. In fact, the other artisans, are just really, besides the jeweler and his, unslotting jams feature and combining jams, is really a complete waste of time. And so is the blacksmith is probably the worst of the lot. I mean, the recipes so far in the beta have been atrocious. Besides their graphical, transmog option, they're just really horrible. That being said, I hope they're not complete, and I hope they do get other stats added to them and become really awesome. One of the things I'm really excited about, though, and I find it to be kind of silly because I never thought I'd be into it, is the whole cosmetic appeal of building my characters with new transmog options. I absolutely am so horribly addicted to transmogging my gear to make it, absolutely awesome looking. It's a lot of fun.
Actually, if I could, on that last little bit you said, our characters are in the process of being erased from the world, but were you guys, like me, running around with like 20, 30 stacks of dyes, colors you liked? So anytime you transmogrified like a new item or something, you could dye it, or if you felt like, let's see what everything looks like in black, you would do it?
Nope.
Or any...
Just you.
Okay, just me. Sibcoe, is it just me? Am I the weird one?
No, I did have a bunch of white and cardinal dye and infernal dye. I did have some actually because I quite enjoyed it, because certain characters, and this is the problem, I have all the characters at level 70. Well, I did until about probably 10 minutes ago. I have all the characters at level 70, and I wanted to see what they all look like in different ways. Everything from the pure white, holy looking badass kind of Crusader with the ivory tower shield, all the way down to my, burning crimson red, flowing robes wizard, and my, really, really awesome looking armored demon hunter, my crazy witch doctor, choking a snake by its neck, which, having snakes flying out of her head on the top of this skull mask and dripping blood from her ceremonial dagger. That kind of stuff is really cool. And maybe it's just because I'm getting old and boring, but I really like it.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It was really cool to make a gear set that looked complete, that looked put together, so you weren't like that item just doesn't belong. No, get rid of it. I need something. I need a side grade just so it looks better than what I have right now. But yeah, okay, so I'm not the only one. So I'm one for two out of who's in the channel right now.
One thing I'd like to mention, if it wasn't for the Enchantress, I wouldn't be picking up blues and rares. I would just totally go over them, because that's the only reason I ever use the crafting materials, is to re-roll my items anymore. And it is a significant amount to re-roll your stats, so luckily they do give you quite a bit of rares and blues from running rifts. You get these caches, and each of those caches have usually like 5 to 7 items in it that you can all use for salvaging.
Yeah, I always find myself doing the stupid thing. Don't you laugh, Beta. I'm looking at you. But I always find myself getting out of a rift, salvaging everything, going, oh yeah, I have this stupid bag I have to open. Open up the bag, pick up everything, re-salvage everything a second time, then put everything I want in my stash, and then selling off everything else that I don't need. So I was like, I still haven't nailed down the procedure, but yeah, I'm still picking up, I was picking up all the rares. And the pesky blue that made its way into my character's stash. Playing a wizard, it's like, I want to move. No, I don't want to pick up those items. I want to move. Okay, thank you. I almost died. But, yeah, so I think that's all we had to say. Again, the blacksmith is a little woefully inadequate, but that's because he looks incomplete. Like, some of the recipes you can see or get the drops. I think there's an angelic along with like a devil hell variant map material that will drop, but you can't pick it up. Like, it will land, it'll have the beam of orange glow above it, but you actually can't pick it up. And there's also a cultist blood that Lantonio has gotten way too many of, and he has not been able to pick up a single one. So we quietly left to ourselves, but we say sorry, and we move along. So hopefully the blacksmith will get an update, as well as maybe something for the jewel crafter. Maybe we'll get a price reduction, so that's why everyone who doesn't have 500 million gold will actually be able to make these higher end gems. So that's just a little more I can add on. Is there anything else either one of you would like to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the blacksmith plans really need to be changed. Not to mention that they keep trolling me with doing T2 and T3 rifts, Torment 2, Torment 3 rifts, and getting level 12 blacksmithing plans. That being said, the blacksmithing plans require some of the largest number of materials, which are already at a premium because you need them for rerolling your stats. They require a massive amount of those materials, and that they require you to farm epic crafting drops, and they require you to farm the best version available. So a lot of people gloss over this. For example, a Demon Hunter bow that you can make from the blacksmith requires the double shot white item. But there's not just a double shot, there's a superior double shot, a fine double shot, an exceptional double shot. And if you really want to waste all those mats, you need to go find the absolute best version of it. We assume that that matters. All of those mats together are really expensive. That's a massive amount of investment for some item that is really total trash. I mean, is what it boils down to. There's nobody in their right mind would use one of those items over a regular drop legendary. Because first of all, 98% of them don't have a single legendary style affix. They don't have any kind of unique properties. A couple of them are pretty cool. They're not bad. But overall, they're completely underwhelming. And if they don't get changed, they serve absolutely no purpose besides providing a pretty picture to transmog your weapon into. So I think that's, absolutely something the team needs to look at, and rapidly, because it is seriously underwhelming.
Yeah, I sorry I glossed over that, the whole aspect of, well, yeah, it is what it is. You said it. There's no need to go on top of that. Anything else that we may have missed, Beta?
I'd love to see the blacksmith being able to craft any legendary in the game.
Interesting.
That's my 2 cents. Yeah.
2 cents, almost quite literally. All right. I think we hit a rifts, we hit adventure mode, we hit crafting, we hit BOA as one of the more major parts of Rebirth Souls. All right, I guess the other major part we could hit on is I know definitely I got 165, so I could talk a little bit about it. But Sibcoe, I know you got 1 to 70. So how are your views of the Crusader? Is it really the mid-range fighter that they played it out to be? And most of all, is it fun? And should we give a damn?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I think you're the only one who actually got 1 to full 70 and played it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I played it through about Torment 1. Yeah, so Crusader. Crusader's insanely fun when you level it up. It's very overpowered. And Crusader is a really fun class to level. They're, as I just said, they're stupidly overpowered. They're new skills. You're finding out new things. You've got a freaking, nightmare steed that you can ride across the battlefield that does all sorts of different things. I mean, there's some really cool stuff. They're the first shield-based character in the game. They require a shield to be functional, and that's something that everybody's really craved after, and it's been a long time coming. I'm really excited about that, and it's a really good feature. When you get to 70, they're really cool. When you do normal, expert, master, they're pretty cool. When you start to get to master and beyond, you want to fall asleep. And the problem is they're not really finely tuned at the moment. As a class, the Crusader is based so massively on cooldowns, and you require those cooldowns to kill anything. So since they nerfed the beam of doom, let's call it, and fixed it, the Crusader doesn't really have a good way to dish out a massive amount of sustained DPS. And he is the only class in the game that has that problem, because everything requires a cooldown. And his auto attacking is essentially pointless. So you're left with skills that require Wrath and that require cooldown, one or the other. The cooldowns are too long, and Wrath regeneration is much too slow. So you do have these big lulls in combat where you really can't do anything. And for that reason, the Thorns build has been really popular. So the Thorns build allows you to stand there and attack with your auto attack with your other stuff, and also get hit and all the time be doing a sustained amount of damage. The problem is that damage doesn't scale to Torment 2 or above. It really doesn't scale well. I mean, you can get up there and do it, but it doesn't scale very well, because you're always with a finite amount of Thorns damage, but the HP of monsters is scaling so massively that you just don't get anywhere after a certain point. So I think what they need to do with the Crusader is really look at the cooldowns, really start to find a way for the Crusader to have a sensible ability cycle, rather than simply have to blow all 4 or 5 abilities simultaneously to kill a pack and then be left kind of wondering. You can get around this with massive amounts of cooldown, with bugged abilities, and with a few other things, but ultimately I think the class just needs a little bit of work. And that's to be expected. It's a new class, it's not been through the mill of changes and tweaks and buffs and nerfs and balances. Overall, I think it's going to be insanely fun to play. When they do get around to working on it and fixing up a couple of these things, it's a really fun class with really fun abilities. And yes, it absolutely does fulfill the role of being a moving tank on the battlefield. Not the DPS, Holy Trinity tank type of thing, but an actual physical tank. He feels square, he looks square, he moves square. Pairing him up with the Templar is an awesome amount of fun, and, just getting into the battlefield and starting to slay monsters is a really fun way to play him. The problem, as I said, is to do with the cooldowns and the Wrath regeneration. Even resolving the Wrath regeneration, the cooldowns wouldn't be so bad, but one of them at least has got to get fixed. Overall, though, yeah, absolutely mid-range fighter. You've got, shield bashes, which are mid-range. You've got mobility when you're moving about in mid-range. You've got ranged abilities of 15 yards or so, as well as close-up abilities. You've got your thorns, and it's really fun being able to block and synergize block with healing and all sorts of other stuff. So really fun. I think he's going to be a great addition to the game, and I think a lot of people will absolutely fall in love right out of the gate. And not to mention, in his full armor with the shield on, looks absolutely badass.
Yeah, and he's one of the only classes that can use a two-hand weapon in his main hand using the passive. And that's super cool.
Yeah, the Crusader, it did take me a little bit to get used to the abilities and how everything played, but as soon as I got a build around level 10, with all the unlocks and everything, and just refining it as I went, you're right, the leveling curve was just there. You just go. It's like, kill your stuff, and then I got the Belial, and I'm like, how am I going to kill this? Because the 2 ranged abilities didn't work on Belial. Never got to them. So I actually put on Blessed Hammers with the, I forget the name of the rune, but it basically makes electric chains back to you, will periodically go off. So you have the hammers going around you, Blessed Hammers maybe?
Yeah.
And they're going around you, they're arcing lightning back to you, and the hammers actually have a pretty decent swirl range, probably I would say at least 30 yards. So I was basically going up to as close as I could to get to Belial, pumping out a full wrath worth of hammers. They were arcing him going back, and they were doing a lot of damage. I mean, that was my damage at all, that whole fight, and it was doing a lot. And then using the steed to get away from the big hits, and then using Law of Hope during the little mini bombardment phase. It all worked out really nice. So that's my little tidbit I could throw on to everything that Sibcoe said, because everything he said is true. When we were at BlizzCon, we saw the concept art. They started it off with almost literally a rectangle. It's like a rectangle with 2 rectangles for arms. And that was almost how they started the concept art for this particular class, and they just kept on refining it. And the final image, which is what's on the Reaper Souls website is the end concept art before they started doing all the 3D modeling and basing it off of that. So it's a really great class, and I agree it will be a great addition to the game, and will give you another reason to repurpose all your strength-based gear if you so choose. So that's my addition. I know Sibcoe you had. Anyone else have anything about the Crusader, or can we move on to what may be our last topic?
Nothing else from me. I did find the post that said that was talking about the cursed chests. I'll go ahead and bring it up here on the stream.
Okay. You can have the mic for a couple bits.
Alright, so it says here, while our big focus of any Blizzard beta is to polish and refine, that doesn't mean that the only things that we intend to do during the beta is remove content. As an example, we've taken out the bulk of the content that was once the Nephilim Trials and converted them into a new style of events called the Cursed Chests. These events should be available in the next phase of testing and on the PTR. Interesting. So we knew that there was a PTR coming to the retail version of Diablo 3 that was going to include 2.0, but it sounds like that this new event, the Cursed Chest, is also going to be available for retail PTR. Unless I'm reading that wrong.
No, it sounds like you're reading it right. They're going to be on the PTR. And I guess a minor caveat before we hit the last topic. The Diablo 3 development team continually strikes me as being ahead of the ball, or ahead of curve, however you want to phrase it, as far as getting stuff pumped out. Like, no one thought... Well, people thought the beta was coming, but no one thought the beta was going to hit as soon as it was, for the most part, in the shape that it is, as we have right now, let alone a PTR before year's end. And if everything goes according to plan, it be a PTR, then closed beta, say mid-January to, who knows, maybe even before February there'll be a closed beta. I don't know, maybe it's just too much shell shock from Diablo 3 and going through so many core iterations in the beta process to all the 3 patch 1.0 A, B, C patches they need to do to fix the game so early. It just seems shocking that they're moving with such speed, with such content that they do have right now. Do any of you have a feeling on that?
Feels
Like crickets, eh?
I don't have anything to say on the subject.
All right.
Yeah, I could chime in, surprisingly. Yeah, I think they have to develop faster. I mean, the whole concept of taking 10 years to develop a game, 2 years for the beta, and a year to kind of half-ass launch it, and work it into live, really have to be gone. With the speed that other companies are developing, we like to think that Blizzard is this untouchable island, and I think the lack of subs going up and rather going very much down in World of Warcraft, and the majority of its audience being in Asia, is really starting to reiterate the fact and reinforce the fact that even Blizzard are fallible. Even Blizzard can fall prey to competition, and have done, and continue to fall prey to competition, and it becomes more and more competition, especially now that they're integrated with Activision, and Activision have a habit of releasing games on a very predictable schedule. I think there's going to be much more pressure to make sure that they're getting games out. I know for a fact from listening to some of the financial reports from Blizzard Activision that they're required by Activision to publish a certain amount of games in a certain period of time. So, for example, I believe they have to have, like, say, 2 titles a year, every single year, without fail. That's part of their commitment in the Activision Blizzard arrangement. That might be wrong, but that's something along those lines. It might be correct, but I just don't put me out there. So I think with that in mind, they've got to learn to develop faster. I think Hearthstone was a really great example for them. A really good, it was a good test bed for, hey, can we develop something simple, fast, effective, and really good? And now they're hiring people to the Hearthstone team and growing that team and making it into a more full-fledged team because they're seeing how amazingly successful it was. I think if anything, they should learn a lot from Hearthstone. They should learn that, hey, it was not a massive development budget. It was a simple idea. It was done in the face of massive incumbent competition that's been around for years in like Magic the Gathering and other games, and they were able to execute it in a very quick time frame, produce the game and the beta in the same year, and get it out to people, and now have like 1 million people in beta, and ultimately have produced one of the most successful competitive games on the market today, number 2 on Twitch every single day of the week, next to only League of Legends. That is an amazing achievement. Sometimes number 3 with Dota gets up there. But I mean, that's an amazing achievement in the time that they've had it. And I think they've got to be looking at that and saying, why are we taking 10 years to develop a game when inside of 12 to 18 months we've developed a smash hit? Those things I think are going to push us into a realm where Blizzard are producing content faster than they ever have before.
Yeah, it would be a nicer change, and in some aspects they already do. But it's also, as BDF is pointing out, it's also a company philosophy. Like, they have to do a switch over, they have to do the manpower, which I think which for specifically Diablo 3, I think we can trace back all this change, all this stuff. Not necessarily when Jay Wilson left. That argument has been beaten over, and I think it's really a red herring. It's a false argument as far as that. The credibility, give where it's due, but we shouldn't use that as a basis point. I think it's when, I forget his name. I should know it because it's probably a marked date in Diablo 3 history as far as the short term. When there was this great big itemization post. I remember you did a video commenting on it, Sibcoe, and it lured out Travis Day, I think for the first time posting on the official forums, and then he didn't stop posting. It was like every week or so we would get another update, and then Jay Wilson resigned as game director, and I think Wyatt Chang got on there a little bit more. As far as keeping us informed with information. And ever since then, we've been getting more developers involved on the forums, not just blogs, not just videos, but on the forums. And I think they've begun this process of changing. But like any big company or any big organization, they're stuck in their ways, and if they're trying to change, there's going to be hiccups. There's going to be growing pains. And that's what Blizzard, I think, is going through right now. As far as that, they're still switching over. I know, especially for the fan sites, they want to do more for the fan sites, the communities, the live streamers, the YouTubers. They want to get them more involved. They just had their first ever fan site mixer earlier in the year, where they invited a couple of fan sites from each of the individual IPs, WoW, StarCraft, Diablo, etc., to take part, but also question them on like, what do you do, what do you like, what don't you like, what do you want to see. They wanted actual involvement. So just on that aspect alone, that they are showing signs of progress and learning and trying to become a leaner, faster development team. So I do agree with everything you said, on top of everything I've seen as well. Anything?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Dredd. I have noticed that, I'm not saying that it was always the case, but it seems like the community managers and the developers are really, really, really trying to get feedback from the community, and I think that, it wasn't always that way, and especially in the Blizzard, like we're talking about with the Diablo 3, it didn't have very much public testing at all, and we kind of saw where that went, and I think they're really trying to get feedback from the community, and they're trying their hardest to listen to what people are saying. And I know it wasn't always that way. There was a point in time where Blizzard, I'm not speaking on behalf of them or anything or saying it's bad, but they thought they were the best, and they knew that they were the best, so they kind of just said, we know what's best for you, so we're gonna continue development our way. But as a company in whole, I can definitely tell that they're making a really hard push to get back into the community, get back into the feedback that the community brings them, and we'll have to see how that reflects in with Diablo 3.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's a really, both make really great points there. I think what I would add is the following. It's kind of philosophical, as I tend to do from time to time, but I think that in game design, you want to be a company that sets trends. You don't want to be a company that follows trends. You don't want to be dependent on your community for ideas on how to build your game. And it's kind of an interesting thing. There's a lot of companies out there that assume that community interaction is the way to develop a game. So you create total transparency, 100%. You ask the community what they want, and you just build it for them. And actually, that's a wrong thing to do. The right thing to do is to set the trend. And the way you set the trend is by knowing what's coming down the future. And Apple's a great example of this. Apple know what customers want today, but more importantly, they extrapolate what they're going to want tomorrow. That's what makes them super successful. What other companies do is mistakenly assume that what customers want today, what players want today, is what they're also going to want tomorrow. And that's the rock they perish on. What Blizzard need to do is embrace this community feedback, embrace these ideas, and then find a way to extrapolate out of that what we as players have not thought of but are going to enjoy tomorrow. And that's what they really need to be successful. It's taking the best of what they've done in the past, which is defining categories and setting trends, combining it with what we want today to be happy as gamers, and extrapolating out what we're going to want to play in the future. That's going to turn them into the Apple of the gaming world, and they're falling a little bit short of that right now. They're just still kind of moving between the two phases of believing they can still set the trend without our input and trying to work out what to do with our input. And that's where they need to kind of take the next step and go up a level in their strategy and work out how to take our input, do what they do best, and extrapolate into something that's going to last for years. That's where they need to go next. And I think they're starting to head in that direction. I think the next few years are definitely going to bring some really good stuff. Hearthstone's a really good indicator of that. They've got their work cut out for them. Heroes of the Storm, for example, is going up against the titan of the gaming industry in Riot and League of Legends, and it's already making some waves in the industry and in the community. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they factor some of this stuff into what they're doing with Heroes of the Storm, whether it's something that they believe they're setting the trend or whether it truly does involve player feedback and really starts to extrapolate out into the future of what a MOBA game is going to want. Same with Hearthstone. We'll see where Diablo 3 goes. Overall, I think the team are doing a great job. They're moving in the right direction. They just need to stay very open and focused on what we want as a community and how that translates to what they know we're going to need in the future.
Someone in our somebody in our chat mentioned what happened to Titan, which was Blizzard's next gen MMO. They have not canceled that project. As far as I last heard, that project basically they didn't they're not canceling the project, but they re-scrapped everything that they had. And so they're redoing the engine, redoing the artwork from the ground up again. They basically, they had the game mostly done, and then, well, maybe not mostly done, probably about halfway done, and then they said, this isn't to our standards. We're gonna go back to the drawing board a little bit. So that's as far as the public knows about Titan.
Actually, we don't want to get too far off topic because this is overall the Diablo 3 Reaper Souls.
It's a grindcast. We are GrindExp. We cover all of Blizzard.
But see, I have a little bit of magic pixie dust I can add on to that. In chat, that is a Twitter account. That is to a Twitter account that just today, fate be it, was announcing he basically says it's Michael Booth. He is listed as only game director at Blizzard, saying, "My team is looking for a lead producer to help us create Blizzard's next awesome game." So he is speculated to be a mystery games game director, and the only mystery game we know of right now that's under development, like closed wraps, like not out in the not listed as a game director for any other game, is Titan. So if you want to follow him, you can, and poke him as you may. So that's as much as we do know, and yeah. So I think I was gonna ask the question about how do you feel about all the other classes you've played, but with the patch coming and with some class, and we've already expressed a few things about certain classes, and this could be another half an hour topic. I'll just ask a closing question of what one thing do you like right now, whether it be a trend or something, or, again, just like love the Mystic, whatever it is. And we'll start with that, and then we'll start with what one thing you don't like and you want to see improved, and then we'll go with the one thing you do like. So we're ending on a positive note. So, Sibcoe, what's one thing you would like to see improved in Rebirth Souls right now?
Okay, so this should only take a couple of hours.
Per the usual.
I will keep it short. I very much promise. I would very much like to see the blacksmith recipes improved. Done. In terms of what I really, really like in the game right now, I really, really like the concept that they've created an environment where we can truly build a character. I just created a video called What is a Build, published it out to Red Team Gaming, and it's really the concept of a build being your passive abilities, active abilities, gear, and critical stats. And the game didn't allow us previously to combine those 4 things or 5 things in a synergistic way. And now they have. So now we can truly create builds that are, game changing based on items that we find, based on stats that we want to push. We can create all sorts of, we can take movement speed and make an entire build around movement speed. And that is something that's never been possible before. So I really like this. I think it's a great step in the right direction. They need to be very, very careful with what they're doing right now with some of the nerfs, and be very careful not to break that system out of fear. They need to just let go and be comfortable and let us enjoy these crazy builds, because that's really the core of what's going to make the game last a long time.
Alrighty. Beta, your turn. What's the one thing you would like to see improved, and what's one thing that you really like about the beta for Reaper Souls?
One thing I'd like to see improved on the beta. That's kind of difficult to say. One thing I would personally like to see. Currently, damage is still the stat that everybody strives for, right? So you've got. You still have your trifecta items, and you still there's still DPS thresholds to get to the next level of torment. I'd really like to see them focus the game more about group roles. So, for example, maybe you have one person in your group that stacks magic fine, so that he's a little bit weaker than your other allies in your group, but he's going to make your loot in your group heck of a lot better, and he's still going to be able to maybe do some CC. He's still going to be viable for the group, but maybe make it so other people in your party can have their own roles, and not make DPS the only stat that every single person strives for, right? One thing I like about Diablo 3, probably the Mystic is my most favorite aspect of the game right now, and running rifts. I love rifts. If you ever watch my stream, you know that I almost exclusively run rifts. I don't care for bounties so much. I don't care for the campaign that much. I like just mindlessly going through dungeons and slaying zombies. So rifts and using the items I get from the rifts and re-rolling stats from the Mystic. That's my favorite part.
Alrighty. If I had to think of something that I would want to be improved, and Sibcoe, I think I'm echoing something I've said on one of your podcasts probably 8 months to 10 months ago, is right before summer. I think this is when we talked about it. It's like, when they come out with Reaper Souls, we can't just get 100 new legendaries. We have to get 500 new legendaries. We have to get enough legendaries, as I'm remembering as I'm saying it right now, that when we get into Reaper Souls beta, we cannot find all the legendaries that are in this game. There needs to be, with all the players and everything, there still needs to be a few legendaries we never find in the beta. That's when we know there are enough legendaries, there are enough items to possibly change our builds that we don't find them in beta. We may data mine them, we may know they exist, but we actually never get really a chance to truly, really get all the information we want out of them, and then it gets to release so that we get that item. And you can say, not only did I get this on my character, I'm the first one to really ever have this, like, not even beta, like everything else. That's when you know you have enough independent legendaries to sustain the game, to sustain the grind, the proverbial carrot on the stick, as they put it. The symbol of accomplishment is the way I like to view it. That's what I would like to see improved. The one thing I
want to tack onto that. So it's like the elusive Archon rune.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
I was tacking on.
I'll go. Okay, I'll agree with that one. The elusive unlock all arcane runes string. I don't know if they looked at it going, wait, we nerfed this to the ground, and here we are giving them potential to do it all over again. Wait, no, we're not going to do this one again. Or we just haven't found it, or it was just never implemented. It was just an idea that got scrapped, or whatever. So, the thing I love about the game... Sorry, I'm tacking on. I love the Mystic. The Mystic is probably the single best thing to happen in this game, along with, feasible builds. Because with the limitations of BOA and a couple of other things, and Magic Find being a little bit weirder now as far as percentages and how much it actually helps you versus doesn't, which is an old debate, not even a new one. It's nice to know if you get a piece of gear and you just want to reroll to get that 5% crit so you can use a different ability and get more use out of your character, that it's there. So I really love the Mystic and everything like that. Yeah, so I think that's about it. Since this is our first live stream, we love all the interaction. And the next one, if we may do a live, and we'll do a little bit better prepared. Just kind of winging at the moment with the beta servers down. But we'll answer if you have any questions. We actually will link a video that specifically was for leaving comments for your questions that we could test out, or any other kind of discussions you want on our YouTube channel. And with that, I would like to say thank you to Sibcoe from Red Team Gaming. For everyone who may have not known of you before this live grindcast, that is, where can people find you?
I am usually in the nearest bar. When I'm not there, I'm at Red Team Gaming, youtube.com/Red Team Gaming.
Alrighty. And we love having you on. In fact, it's actually nice to have you on. You get to be lazy and just talk. And we do all the post-production this time around. So
that's a great thing.
You get off easy. So, yes. We love having you on. And this has been a long time in the running.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. And I'm absolutely thrilled that I don't have to wade through the quagmire of Adobe and Premiere and all that crap for the rest of the evening.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Is there any last remarks you would want to ask or say, Beta, before we go?
I love Lamp.
I'll go with that one. So, with that, I am Dr. J. Dreadscythe for Beta and Red Team Gaming Sibcoe. We'd like to thank you for joining us on this Diablo 3 Reaper Souls catch-up on this lovely, earth-shattering Sanctuary Character Wipe Day night, wherever time zone you're from, and we will see you later. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
Later.